oranges and lemons. Say the bells of St. Clements. You owe me 5 farthings. Say the bells of St. Martin's. When will you pay me? Say the bells of Old Bailey. When I grow rich, say the bells of Short Ditch. Here comes a candle to light you to bed, and here comes a chopper to chop off your head. Chip chop, the last man is dead.
Let me tell you about the moment this rhyme stopped being cute for me. I was at a friend's kid's birthday party, watching a group of 8-year-olds play the traditional game. You know the one. 2 kids make an arch with their arms, the other kids walk through singing the song, and when it gets to, "Here comes a chopper to chop off your head," the arch comes down and captures whoever's walking through. Everyone was giggling and squealing with delight, and I was standing there with a plastic cup of juice box punch, watching these children literally reenact a public beheading while their parents took videos for Instagram. The disconnect was so surreal, I actually choked on my drink. Because once you know what this song is really about, and honey, buckle up because it gets dark, you realize we've been teaching kids to play execution games while calling it innocent fun. That's some next-level collective psychological processing, right there. All right, time for a history lesson that's going to ruin this song for you forever. We're talking about 18th century London, back when debt could literally get you killed, and public executions were the Netflix of the day. Each verse of this rhyme references actual church bells in London, and each church had a specific role in what was basically the judicial murder pipeline. St. Clement's was near the docks, where oranges and lemons were unloaded, the last taste of sweetness some prisoners would ever have. St. Martin's was where debts were officially recorded. Old Bailey was the courthouse where you'd be sentenced to death for owing money you couldn't pay. But here's where it gets really fucked up. The chopper wasn't just a metaphor. This song was literally mapping out the journey from debt to death, from owing 5 farthings to having your head removed by an actual axe in front of a cheering crowd. The children's game, where kids walk under the arch until the chopper comes down. That's not just innocent play. That's a ritualized reenactment of the walk to the execution block. The arch represents the gallows. The capture represents the moment the noose goes around your neck, or the axe finds your neck. And we turn this into a party game. I can't decide if that's humanity's way of processing collective trauma or just our species' really fucked up sense of humor. But here's what makes this rhyme absolute shadow work gold. It's not really about 18th century executions. It's about the way sweetness and violence interweave in our daily lives, the way pleasant facades hide brutal realities, the way we smile while we're being destroyed. Think about it. The song starts with oranges and lemons, bright, sweet, cheerful images that immediately put you at ease. The bells are calling out in what sounds like a friendly conversation between churches. Everything seems light and musical and harmless, right up until the moment when someone's chopping your fucking head off. This is the shadow of sweet deception. And trust me, we've all experienced both sides of it. We've all been the person hiding knives behind smiles, and we've all been the person who walked trustingly into the arch, thinking we were safe because the words sounded nice. Maybe it was the friend who spoke in caring tones while systematically undermining your confidence, the partner who used pet names while emotionally manipulating you, the boss who praised your work publicly while sabotaging your career privately, the family member who expressed concern while violating every boundary you tried to set. Or maybe, and this is the harder shadow to look at, you've been the one wielding the chopper. Maybe you've used kindness as a weapon, sweetness as a strategy, concern as a cover for control. Maybe you've lured people under your arch with promises of safety, only to let the blade fall when they were most vulnerable. Let's talk about those 5 farthings, because that debt running through the middle of the song, that's not really about money. That's about the psychological IOUs we carry around, the emotional debts we accumulate and never seem to pay off. You owe me 5 farthings. How many relationships have you been in where someone kept a running tally of what you owed them? Not just money, but attention, gratitude, affection, compliance. Where every kindness came with strings attached, every gift became a guilt trip, every favor became leverage for future manipulation. When will you pay me? The voice that's always asking for more, never satisfied, never willing to let the debt be settled. The parent who reminds you of everything they sacrificed for you. The friend who brings up every favor they've done whenever you can't do something for them. The partner who keeps score of every argument and uses your past mistakes as ammunition. When I grow rich. The promise that someday, when you're finally enough, successful enough, grateful enough, compliant enough, the debt will be forgiven. Except it never is, because the debt isn't real. It's a control mechanism disguised as a legitimate claim. And here's the shadow part. We do this to ourselves too. We carry around internal debts that we can never pay off. Debts to our parents for raising us. Debts to our partners for loving us. Debts to society for existing. Debts to God for being flawed. We live our whole lives trying to pay back what we never actually owed in the first place. But the deepest layer of this rhyme is about what happens when you can't pay the debt, when you can't or won't give people what they think you owe them, when you refuse to keep being who they need you to be, when you start setting boundaries, expressing your authentic needs, or just saying no. That's when the chopper comes down. I'm talking about the social execution that happens when you stop performing the version of yourself that other people are comfortable with, when you quit the job that's killing your soul, when you leave the relationship that's draining your life force, when you stop showing up to family gatherings where you're treated like garbage, when you refuse to keep carrying other people's emotional burdens. Suddenly, you're not just disappointing people, you're betraying them. You're not just changing, you're being selfish, ungrateful, destructive. The same people who used to speak to you in sweet tones start wielding emotional machetes, trying to chop off the parts of you that don't serve their needs. This is the execution of the authentic self, and it's happening all around us, all the time. We kill off our real desires, our genuine feelings, our natural responses to life, because we're terrified of what will happen if we stop paying the debts we never actually owed. Here's what I want you to notice about yourself as we dig into this work. What are the emotional debts you believe people owe you? What are the sweet-sounding demands you make that have a chopper hidden behind them? Maybe it's the way you give gifts or do favors, always with the unspoken expectation that you'll get something back. Maybe it's the way you express care or concern, but underneath, there's a demand for gratitude, compliance, or control. Maybe it's the way you remind people of your sacrifices, keeping a mental ledger of everything you've done for them. And here's the shadow work question. What happens when people don't pay up? What happens when they don't respond the way you want them to, don't appreciate what you've done, don't become who you need them to be? Do you get hurt? Angry? Resentful? Do you start making subtle threats about withdrawing your love, your support, your presence? Do you find ways to punish them for their ingratitude? That's your inner debt collector, and honey, it's got a chopper hidden behind its back. But let's flip this around, because shadow work isn't complete if we only look at one side of the dynamic. What are the debts you believe you owe? What are the sweet-sounding demands that other people make on you that you feel obligated to fulfill, even when it costs you your sanity, your energy, your authentic self? Maybe you believe you owe your parents eternal gratitude for raising you, which means you can never disagree with them or live your life differently than they want. Maybe you believe you owe your partner constant availability and accommodation because they love you. Maybe you believe you owe your friends endless emotional support because that's what friendship means. Maybe you believe you owe the world a version of yourself that's always positive, always helpful, always fine. Maybe you believe you owe God perfection, or you owe society compliance, or you owe your children a childhood better than yours, even if it kills you to provide it. Here's the shadow part. You keep trying to pay these debts, even when the payments are destroying you. You keep walking under the arch, believing that if you just give enough, do enough, be enough, the chopper will never fall. But it always falls anyway, because the debt was never real in the first place. And then there's the most insidious layer of all, the way we use sweetness to trap ourselves and others in toxic dynamics, all while telling ourselves we're being loving. I'm talking about the parent who smothers their child with care while refusing to let them grow up and individuate. The partner who's endlessly giving and sacrificing while secretly keeping score and expecting to be worshipped for their martyrdom. The friend who's always there for everyone else's crises while never addressing their own problems. This is codependency disguised as love, control disguised as care, manipulation disguised as kindness. The oranges and lemons of emotional dysfunction, sweet on the surface, toxic underneath. The really twisted part is that everyone involved usually believes they're being good, loving people. The debt collector thinks they're just asking for basic reciprocity. The debtor thinks they're being grateful and responsible. Nobody sees the chopper coming because it's hidden behind so much sweetness. Here's what I've learned from years of doing this work. Not all sweetness hides a chopper. Not all kindness comes with strings attached. Not all care is control in disguise. The tragedy of living in the shadow of sweet deception is that it can make you suspicious of genuine love, genuine generosity, genuine care. When you've been manipulated by people who used kindness as a weapon, it's natural to start flinching every time someone offers you oranges and lemons. But shadow work isn't about becoming cynical or closed-hearted. It's about developing discernment. It's about learning the difference between love that frees and love that imprisons, between sweetness that nourishes and sweetness that poisons. The goal isn't to never trust anyone or never feel obligated to anyone. The goal is to choose your debts consciously, to enter relationships with clear agreements rather than hidden expectations, to give without keeping score and receive without feeling trapped. So the next time you hear oranges and lemons, don't just hear it as a cute children's game about London churches. Hear it as a reminder that we all have the capacity to hide choppers behind sweet words, and we all have the vulnerability to walk trustingly under arches that might collapse. But also hear it as an invitation to speak sweetly without manipulation, to care for people without controlling them, to give without keeping score, and receive without feeling enslaved. Because maybe, just maybe, the real treasure isn't in collecting debts or paying them off. Maybe it's in learning to love freely, without conditions, without expectations, without the threat of execution hanging over anyone's head.
Oranges and lemons. Say the bells of St. Clements. You owe me 5 farthings. Say the bells of St. Mark.